What if the survival of our species hinged not just on what happens on Earth, but what happens beyond Earth? Here's a tweet that stopped me in my tracks. If America falls before consciousness beyond Earth is self-sustaining, it is game over, maybe forever. These words came from Elon Musk. In today's video, we unpack what he really means, why he believes the fate of the United States, the push to build a self-sustaining civilization off-world, and the very survival of consciousness are all tied together. Stay with me, because this is part vision quest, part existential alarm bell, and the implications extend far beyond rockets and Mars. We'll explore why America matters in his view, what consciousness beyond Earth really means, what self-sustaining involves, and whether the game over may be forever. Scenario is realistic or alarmist, plus how you and I fit into it. Let's dive in. To understand this quote, we need context. Elon Musk has long voiced concern about existential threats to humanity: nuclear war, engineered pandemics, runaway artificial intelligence, climate catastrophe, and the idea that all our eggs are in one basket, Earth. What he's saying here: the United States, the America in his phrase, stands as the current powerhouse of technological innovation, financial capital, freedom of expression, and regulatory permissiveness. In his view, the U.S. is the engine that enables bold endeavors like building the rockets and infrastructure to go off-world. If that engine falters politically, economically, socially, then the window for building the backup for humanity may close. That's the urgency in his message. When Musk says, if America falls, he isn't necessarily meaning nation goes bankrupt in the day-to-day sense. He means a decline in the unique combination of capacities that the U.S. currently offers. Innovation ecosystems, risk-tolerant investment culture, large-budget aerospace infrastructure, relatively stable institutions. These are the rails that make something like SpaceX possible. If those rails break, whether through economic collapse, loss of innovation leadership, civil societal breakdown, or geopolitical decline, then the ability to marshal massive technological projects fades. Here, Musk refers to his ambition, making humanity a multiplanetary species. Consciousness beyond Earth means that human life, culture, creativity, awareness persist off the home planet. It's not just sending astronauts for a few weeks. It's establishing a thriving civilization. And self-sustaining is the key word, a settlement that no longer requires Earth to constantly feed it, supply it, prop it up. In his words, the probable lifespan of human civilization will be much greater if we are a multi-planet species. Because if the colony stays tethered to Earth, then any catastrophe on Earth might still wipe out the chain. But if off-world life is independent, then the species has a lifeline. And here's the most striking part. Game over evokes a finality, not simply a setback, but an end. Maybe forever deepens the caution. If Earth-only civilization is extinguished before the lifeboat is ready, then no redo. Musk's thinking here aligns with the concept of existential risk, a collapse of human consciousness, culture, organized intelligence across the planet such that it may never rise again in this universe. His logic: if you're relying solely on Earth, one massive global catastrophe could wipe you out. If you have a second anchor, off-world civilization, you increase your odds. But if you don't build that anchor before the catastrophe, then you might lose completely. Why specifically America? Several threads come together. Historically, the U.S. has spearheaded large-scale space efforts, e.g. NASA, Apollo, and has the private sector capacity, SpaceX, Blue Origin, etc. American political economic systems have, in his view, provided the freedom and capital to experiment and scale, risk-taking, venture funding, tech entrepreneurship. The U.S. dollar and associated financial systems underpin large project funding. U.S. geopolitical stability, relatively, makes it a place where long-horizon projects, like colonizing Mars or building self-sustaining off-world economies, have a chance. If the U.S. loses its lead, whether through economic collapse, internal fragmentation, global challengers overtaking it, then the first-mover advantage gets lost, the risk profile increases, and other global actors may lack the same ecosystem to carry the vision. One could argue Musk sees the U.S. as the current best bet. If that anchor falls, the project stalls. Musk's colonization argument is rooted in existential risk thinking. Earth is fragile, vulnerable to rare but catastrophic events, nuclear war, pandemics, unaligned AI, asteroid strikes, that could wipe out human civilization. By making humanity multiplanetary, the species hedges against those risks. As one study notes, if we had a thriving off-world colony, the probable lifespan of human civilization will be much greater. For example, Musk believes off-world settlements should be self-sufficient. Food, water, power, manufacturing, all happening locally rather than relying on Earth shipments. Some experts argue that colonizing Mars is not a realistic or efficient way to safeguard humanity. The planet is extremely hostile. Thin atmosphere, radiation exposure, low gravity, no breathable air. Even worse than the worst case on Earth. Some risks, e.g. runaway AI, aren't mitigated by being on Mars. You'd still be vulnerable. The cost, both financial and human, to create a self-sustaining colony is enormous, and timelines may stretch centuries. Musk's vision is bold and deeply philosophical, but it's also speculative and risky. It invites not just engineering challenges, but political, ethical, and economic questions. Do we focus on fixing Earth or building elsewhere? Can we sustain the willpower, resources, and global cooperation required? Here's where the clock-ticking tone of that quote becomes very clear. Musk feels there is a window. The engine, the combination of U.S. power, SpaceX momentum, global liberal order, is running now. If that engine slows, the colonization lifeboat may never launch in time. He has said things like, if you don't become multiplanetary, you are stuck on one planet until some eventual extinction event. When you hear America falls before consciousness beyond Earth is self-sustaining, the implication is that we have to act now. The momentum must be maintained, the rocket ships built, the supply chains established, the colony foundations laid, while the favorable conditions still exist. If the favorable conditions change, say large-scale economic collapse, major war, domestic instability, then that window might close. That's the game over, maybe forever logic. Let's unpack self-sustaining in that phrase, because it's the linchpin. Without a self-sustaining settlement, you're still vulnerable. You need closed-loop life support, air, water, food recycling, waste management. You need local power generation, solar, nuclear, perhaps even wind or geothermal, on Mars or moons. You need local manufacturing and resource extraction, building materials from Martian soil, propellants manufactured locally, spare parts produced on site. You need a viable population structure, enough people so that genetic, social, economic systems can persist independently of Earth. You need governance, culture, economy, a society that can function autonomously. Musk's goal of a settlement of 1 million people on Mars was announced in past presentations. Until that threshold is achieved, or something comparable, the off-world civilization remains tethered to Earth. And if Earth falls before you're independent, you're not insulated. Let's ask the hard question. Is this game over, maybe forever scenario realistic, or is it hyperbole? My take, it's a warning, not a prophecy. It draws from the field of existential risk, which studies events that could permanently and drastically curtail humanity's long-term potential. In that sense, yes, if humanity remains only earthbound, then a truly existential catastrophe could end all conscious life here. And if no other anchor exists, there's no guarantee of restart. That's the scenario Musk fears. However, the probability of such total extinction is debated and likely low in the short term. Building a truly self-sustaining off-world civilization is extremely difficult, even for Musk's team and billions of dollars of funding. Even if Earth were devastated, humanity might survive on Earth in some form rather than needing an off-world lifeboat. Musk is using dramatic language to galvanize urgency. The maybe in maybe forever is important. He's not claiming certainty. He's saying the risk exists, the cost of failure is extreme, so we must act. You might be thinking, cool vision. But what does this have to do with me? If humanity becomes multiplanetary, the meaning of home shifts. Your children or grandchildren may live on 2 planets. Projects like this drive technology development, rocketry, materials, life support systems that benefit Earth. Think satellites, sustainable housing, remote medicine. Musk's framing suggests that national stability, investment in science education, and global cooperation matter for our long-term survival. Your vote, your interest in science, your career choices all feed into that engine. And finally, it poses a philosophical question. Are we content with being a one-planet species, or do we embrace the adventure and challenge of being multiplanetary? Some experts argue the idea of colonizing Mars as humanity's insurance policy is misguided. Mars is more hostile than Earth would ever become, and we might be better off investing in making this planet resilient. Others say certain threats, like advanced AI, wouldn't be solved by being off Earth. You'd still be vulnerable. Technological, ethical, psychological hurdles remain. Building a million-person colony on Mars may take centuries, not decades. I believe Musk's vision is invaluable as a North Star. It forces us to think long-term, globally, beyond immediate crises. But we should avoid techno-utopian shortcuts. The path is messy, uncertain. We'll need robust debate about who gets to go, how colonies are governed, how Earth's inequalities translate off-planet, and how to balance space ambitions with earthly obligations. Before we wrap up, I want you to reflect and engage. Do you agree with Musk's statement? Is building a self-sustaining off-world civilization a priority now? Or should we focus all efforts on Earth first? If you want more deep-dive analyses of future of humanity topics, technology, space, society, share this video if you found this idea provocative, because these conversations matter far beyond YouTube.